Welcome to a very special Parents Edition of Synergy to Synastry. Today, Christine and I have our parents on the program for a fun conversation. So, we're going to go around and introduce our parents before we start chatting. I have brought today my mom, Maureen, and my stepdad, Paul. Say hello.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
And I'm here with my dad, Robert, and my mom, Ellen.
Hello.
Hello.
So we thought we'd start off with a softball question for everyone. What is it like having a psychic child?
I think it's very interesting. I think that I was surprised by it, and I like it.
It's good.
So for me, it's a little different. Like, my daughter, when she was in the finance world, it was very easy when people asked me what she was doing. And now when I have to describe what she does, sometimes I get weird looks and some people that are very interesting. So it's a little different.
This is true.
Yeah, for me, I don't think it's different at all. She's always been interested in how things work, very open-minded person. So it's not at all surprising to me that she would kind of go or be drawn into this psychic world.
Very late to the game here. Even when I first met the family, you had already developed an interest in this area. You seem to have some abilities and some sensitivities in this area.
Turning the clock back. When we were kids, for those that can answer the question, were there any signs or indicators of us having psychic abilities that you now understand in retrospect?
Christine, I actually do have a question for you because I was thinking about this. So when you were younger, you used to have, I don't know what to call them, nightmares. I would have probably slept with mommy and daddy, but for some reason, I think you knew what was going on because you stayed there, and I guess you battled or you tried to understand what was happening.
That's funny because I don't even remember it until you just brought it up. And I have like a vague notion of remembering having nightmares, but then like staying with the nightmare and confronting whatever it was until there was no more nightmare.
Yeah, Renee knows the story already, but when she was old enough to be sitting up in a high chair at our kitchen table, her older sister, 2 years older, was sitting there happily playing, or I think she was doing crafts. And all of a sudden I turn around and there's Renee just laughing to herself. And I'm looking around the room. I'm like, okay, Leanne, her sister, is perfectly content, working independently, not interacting with Renee. But there's Renee just in a giggle. It was just something that was very unique for her to do.
That's so cute. I wonder who you were giggling with.
I have no idea. I don't remember.
No, but I have to tell you, at the time, I thought about her grandmother. So the house we were living in was her dad's family home. Her grandmother had passed away when Leanne was 1.5. And Renee's was named after this grandmother, her middle name being Frances. And she lived in this house. She lived where we were living. And she was very jovial person. And I often thought, I wonder if she's here and she's talking to Renee, because I always felt that it would have been really sweet if all my kids could have met both of their grandparents, and her in particular, because she was very fun-loving.
Any other anecdotes from when we were little bitties?
So just one other story where it was confirmed that she had the gift. I have a friend, I'd say for the last 15 years, his brother had passed many years ago, and his brother had hidden something, and no one could ever find it. She said, okay, I see a salmon couch, and he had a salmon couch in his basement many years ago, and she said, I think it's hidden underneath or whatever. So she described it perfectly. And he said, well, we never looked there. And then she said, if I see it now, it's by water. And then what my friend told her was, this is Brooklyn. So he said in the old days, instead of paying somebody or moving it, they would just take it, put it in their trunk, and they would throw it in the bay by where we lived. So that's where the couch was put, and that's where that hidden thing exists to this day. I don't think he'll ever find it, but he did get closure. He was very satisfied.
That's really funny because that was one of the strangest readings I ever did. Where's the thing that I'm looking for? And I was like, I'm not a detective. So it was a strange reading, but apparently it was accurate.
Well, then recently the same thing happened to us when my brother passed away and we're cleaning out the apartment, and he had told her to tell me to look in this one closet, and sure enough, there was a nice surprise there.
So maybe I should be like a detective.
A detective, yes.
Yeah, work on cold cases.
For cold
yes.
case.
Next question that we have: are there any other family members, so in either of the family trees, that you think had psychic abilities? Or what about yourself?
It's tragic, but my mother used to read cards. The night my brother got into an accident, she was reading cards that week. The death card kept coming up, and she knew something bad was going to happen, and she didn't know to which son or whatever. My brother got into an accident and eventually passed away, and from that day on, she never read cards again. She was afraid to.
This also goes back to our episode on divination tools. I've got it a ton of times in the last 6 months. And it could be death of a relationship, a career, something else in your life, not always the death of a person.
Okay, then the other thing that I'll leverage into there was my brother, 6 months before he passed, he started having visions of my grandmother, my grandfather calling him. He saw visions of heaven. So it wasn't a complete surprise when we started to put the pieces together.
What about that dream you had before I was
Oh,
born?
yeah, no, that's the other thing. Christine was just born, and I was in bed sleeping, and I was kind of sad my brother Ralph wasn't around to see it. And then all of a sudden in the dream, he starts nudging me, and he says, "Robert, wake up, wake up." He goes, "Where's Christine?" We levitate into the air, and we float into Christine's room. We're sitting right over the crib, and he says, "Wow, she's beautiful, Robert." And I said, "Yeah, yeah." And then I thought he was going to stay, and he says, "I just want to let you know she's beautiful, and I'm proud of you." And he said, "I got to go," and he had to leave right away. But he did visit. It was real. I was out of my body. I spoke to him, and I'll swear to it this day that really happened.
Wow.
That's a great story.
You're reminding me of a few stories, but I'll tell this one because it feels very special to me. My grandfather passed about 6 months after I got married the first time. He and his wife, my grandmother, they were very close. She was devastated, of course, when he passed, and among other things, she never learned to drive, so her independence was kind of diminished, and gosh, she couldn't even write a check for herself. I mean, it was like starting from scratch. We all were there to support her. So probably about 6 months after he passed, I remember one day sitting by the poolside with her. I had been having a recurring dream, which is something that happens to me often. I was in my grandparents' home with our family, all the cousins, as we would do around a holiday, and my grandfather was there. And just like Robert, you were talking like, I swear it happened. I swear he was there. And the feeling of comfort from this dream was it was just, to this day, I wish I would have it again. And the message really was, he's not gone. He's still with our family. So we're sitting by the pool with my grandmother, and I looked at her and I said, I want to tell you this dream that I've had several times. She said, "Oh, thank you so much for telling me that. That makes me feel so good that like he's still around in some way." I never had the dream again after I told her that story.
Wow.
It's definitely because it was a message. Once you delivered the message, he didn't need to, he didn't need to share that anymore. He could still visit you in other ways, but that message is no longer relevant.
Right. The other one also involved my grandmother, which I think is interesting. And I think Renee could speak to that because some of her psychic abilities, I think, stems from her grandmother. This was like my family room when I was a young child. and she was sitting in the corner. And I was sleeping, all of a sudden I heard like banging, and I knew she was coming across the room with a walker. And then I kind of woke up and I looked at the end of my bed and I saw this older woman, but she wasn't my grandmother. I went back to sleep. A few minutes later, this time it was getting closer and it was louder, and it was so loud. And there she was, closer, sitting on my bed, and it was totally my grandmother, like her outfit, her smile, everything. And she put her hand on my knee and said, "Everything's going to be okay. Everything's going to be okay." A week later, my marriage ended. And I felt like it was my grandmother telling me in advance everything was going to be okay.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
I just got chills. I feel like that's such a beautiful gift.
Yeah, it was. And I remember that morning when I woke up, I was with my parents because we were down the Cape for Christmas.
We went down the Cape the following Christmas, and then I had a dream where my Nana visited me. And it was only that year prior that she had visited my mom in her dream.
I just got a chill from that.
Question for everybody. Do you dream, and do you dream in color?
Not in color.
You don't dream in color?
I don't think so.
I dream in color. Do you dream in color?
I don't remember my dreams.
Oh, okay.
Oh, see, there you go. You say that sometimes, Paul.
I mean, I know I dream, but I don't remember them.
Mm-hmm.
And you dream in black and white?
I don't know.
Sorry, I'm not attacking you. I'm just so shocked.
No, I don't recall color. I do dream, but I don't recall if it's color or not.
I mean, the last dream that I really remember was when my mom had passed and she told me to go get her coats from the closet, but I don't remember seeing anything. I just remember hearing.
Clairaudience.
What's that mean?
Your psychic ability comes from hearing, not seeing.
Oh, yeah. So I remember I hear things, I don't see things in my dreams.
And Maureen will wake up, she'll start telling me about her dreams, and I sit there and I listen, and is laying this out like a full movie, and I'm like, you have all that in your dreams? Like I can't believe it. Mine tend to be very kind of weird, fragmented pieces. Sometimes they're in color, but they're usually not very pleasant dreams.
Yeah. So my connection to anything psychic, I feel, has come from dreaming. Until my dad passed, and when he passed, we were all sitting around talking about him and planning. Honestly, I can't even remember what I was worrying about. All of a sudden, I said, "Oh, my dad just touched my arm and said, Wig," that was my nickname, "Wig, relax. Everything's okay. Don't worry about it." And I said it out loud to everybody in the room. That was the first time it wasn't a message from a dream. It was real world. That was kind of scary. It was comforting because he was like being my dad in real life, like comforting me. And that's what you like from a parent when you're stressed over something.
We were laughing about it because she was sitting on the same couch in the same seat that I had been in within a day or two before. I talked about it in the Claire's episode where I felt his presence, and they were trying to guess how old he was when he had retired. Oh, yeah. And it was, I think, the next day, and she turns to me, "Oh my gosh, I think he's here." Like, it just came over her, and I was like, "It's the magic cushion." She's in the same spot.
Yeah.
I remember that. What was he, 85 or something? I forgot what the answer was.
It was 62, 63 was the number that I got, and then they found that it was 62.
Right. Okay.
Or by their math.
I was just like, how does he remember? He wasn't at the recording, but now I remember the episodes have come out.
Yeah, that episode came out already.
I'm not claiming to be clairvoyant, all right? Unless 85 comes up, then maybe I am.
Oh my God.
Right?
Yeah.
Question for both of you. Do you have worry, anxiety over some messages that you get? And how do you deal with that?
I would say I'm more inclined to do what you described, where I'm confused by it. I don't get the message or the context or the timing. I don't understand it. And sometimes it takes a week, sometimes it takes 6 months or longer.
Mm-hmm.
There's one specific time that I'm thinking of that I knew what was going to happen, and I was anxious because I didn't want it to happen, and it was the ending of a relationship. For some reason, Spirit felt the need to hammer it into me that this needs to end. But that's the only one. I would say for most of them, I'm never really anxious. And I think I was only anxious because I didn't want it.
Yeah.
All right, so the next question we have for everyone is, when did you first learn about our psychic abilities and how?
I always suspected something, but when you came out and said you were studying it, that's the first time I found out that you were. But I always felt you had some type of connection to the other world.
It's like coming out of the psychic closet. They always had an idea, but when I finally said it, it was true.
Well, I had a dream that she.
Oh no! There we go. Yeah.
Just kidding.
Maureen, when you shared that story, and I shared mine, when I speak to people, right, and C.S. Lewis said this. C.S. Lewis said, those are predisposed to believe in the spiritual world will believe, and those that don't will just rationalize it after it happens. But when I speak to people that are non-believers in the spiritual world, and then I'll ask them, well, didn't anything like that ever happen to you? And sure enough, everyone will have a story of a message from their grandmother or someone that had passed. So I don't know why people are so reluctant to believe it, but they are.
I work in cybersecurity in the Department of Defense and Department of Defense contractors. The federal government did a study on people with psychic abilities back in the 1970s, and you can look it up. It's called Project Stargate. There's some people who were part of the program have come out publicly and said, look, there were some very encouraging results from this. We saw evidence of people who have abilities. Your point, Robert, we all have our prejudices about such things, but there is factual evidence for it. A friend of mine from high school, his older brother died tragically in an automobile accident one evening, and his mother, who didn't seem to go around, publicly just telling this to everybody, but she was recounting this, and a little tearfully one afternoon when we were just sitting, hanging around together. But she said she knew the moment it happened. She sat bolt upright in bed. She knew something terrible had just happened to her oldest son. When you're talking to somebody in a setting like that, you see how genuine they are and that they're sharing something from their heart. I walked away from that and thought, wow, that's pretty special. That's pretty terrible that happened, but it was the first person I had ever met who had any abilities in this area.
Thank you for sharing that, Paul.
Yeah, I guess the same thing happened when my brother just passed away. I knew something was wrong. I knew he passed away, and everybody kept telling me no, but it was confirmed when we went to the apartment and found him.
Everybody's a little psychic.
Well, it just goes to prove the spiritual world is very active if you're willing to listen.
So another story I just was thinking about while you were talking related to my mom. So my mom is 85. She has been diagnosed with dementia. She knows who everybody is, and it's not like she's, putting a banana in the refrigerator.
I do that now.
I don't even know why I decided on a banana when I told that story. Anywho,
the toast. I go with the toast.
Yeah. It's like that's like when you're having a stroke if you smell like burning toast, right?
Oh yeah. I don't
Isn't
know
that it?
one.
I don't think I made that up.
Okay.
What I learned this week.
What I learned this week might not be real.
Yeah. So what happened was, years ago, we went to visit my grandmother. Again, the same Nana that we're talking about a lot. She was in an assisted living here on the Cape, but eventually she ended up going into the nursing home and passed. On the way there to visit her, it was my mom and I. As we were going down the hall, there was a woman, probably my age, and I walked by and I heard her say, "It's me, Mom. I'm your daughter." And oh my God, it hit me so hard. And I said to my mom, "Did you hear that? Did you hear what that woman said?" And she was like, "No." In that moment, I said to myself, "I hope that doesn't happen to me." And now I have this mom with dementia, but she knows who I am, so I'm good with that. But I always think back to that. Things happen to you and you just kind of keep them in. You keep them to yourself, not in a bad way. It's in my head. Goodbye. I move on with my day. But for some reason, I was connecting it to my mom. Like I was meant to see that as I don't know, a precursor or something. But
What you're describing would be a premonition. You can have that when you're asleep and you can have it when you're awake. I have that too. We've talked about this on the podcast before. We tend to write things off as coincidence, but what are the odds that you happen to be in the hallway that day at the same time as this mother-daughter and they're having this conversation and you heard it and Grandmama didn't hear it? So you were receiving the message and you were a similar age to this daughter and you were connecting to her and you still remember that, and it's been maybe
Right.
almost a couple decades now.
Right. I almost felt it was get ready. That was the message. Get ready.
Yeah, sounds it. Yeah.
So another example, Mommy, you're psychic too.
Well, remember when you got the reading for me for a present? And
Oh, yeah.
he said immediately, "Oh, I love your energy. I love your energy." And are you psychic? I'm thinking, no.
What he said about you, which is, I think, different than it presents for Christine and I, so it could be interesting for the listener and for the group here. He described your psychic abilities in some ways being tied to your creative expression, the fact that you are artistic, and that you could actually channel, like, no, this is how it's supposed to look, or this is the vision for the art that you're going to create, and it comes to you. Because you could, I know you've said that in years past, that, like, you have a dream that you're designing something.
Oh God,
And
it's the worst. It's like I
yeah.
work all day, now I have to dream and be in my I'll say that to Paul. I'm like, "Okay, I woke up, I'm designing." I'm like, "I'm annoyed." I mean, I like my job and all, but you need a little rest.
Did we ever do your numerology? I was thinking about this when you were saying you were creative. She's a 9 like me.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, I heard something
Validation.
about vibrations and math, and of course, I think string theory.
Okay,
So
here
I'll be
goes down the
interested.
nerdy route.
I can go down this rabbit hole with you, Paul, for hours. So just let me know.
We had an extended conversation about string theory. Maybe that could be a way to support people having psychic abilities, because if you're connecting to just universal vibration, or one thing happens here and it's also happening over there, then that could explain why people have premonitions or are sensing something happening at the same time.
Right. I'm someone who has an armchair Monday morning quarterback interest in theoretical physics. I've always been interested in relativity, quantum mechanics, quantum entanglement. To me, it opens up the door of possibility as to why some people might have a gift in this area.
I'm convinced science is going to prove all of this in some way. Like, I feel like we're right there. We just haven't gotten there yet.
Well, as AI becomes GI, and everything becomes known, and I think it'll be clear.
Copper's very upset that he's not included in recording.
I know.
I think it's the cat psychic.
I think they're psychic because they do weird
Yeah.
things at weird times. We were talking about an episode about signs and symbols, and Renee
Yeah.
was saying one of her signs is a cat. Copper starts chatting, grabbing the microphone. Ever since then, has needed to be involved, especially when Renee's speaking.
Oh my God, that's funny.
Yeah, Mom, do you remember that? We do talk about it on the episode that Christine is citing, but it was around the time when I got the reading done, and we kept having these cats coming into
Oh,
the
in the
backyard.
backyard. Oh,
Yes.
yeah. Oh, yeah, that's so funny. Yeah, you were
Yeah.
kind of fixated on why does this cat keep coming back?
Yeah. Went for a walk the other day before we came down the Cape, and all of a sudden a cat just walks right out into the path and stops and is just staring at us. And so Leanne was freaked out, and we don't know this cat, and like presumably it's from a neighborhood house, but there could be stray cats. We're just standing there, and I was thinking it would start walking away. It didn't. So she was like, "Oh, let's cross the street." So we went to the other side of the street, and it just was watching the whole time. I will be out and about, and there will always be like a cat that wanders up to me and just sits there and just stares at me. So I just say hi. I don't know who's sending this or what's going on, but there is some sort of
There's a weird connection.
there's a connection with cats. I don't know.
Yeah.
So sorry for the interruption.
Sorry for the cat butt.
Well, I do have a question. So, Renee and Christine, so how did you guys get comfortable to finally, I don't know another phrase, but to come out?
Our friend group who meets once a month, and joining other groups of people who are into this sort of thing kind of got me more comfortable speaking about it. It's still a little bit uncomfortable today when I run into somebody who is very against it because I can feel it as soon as I say it. But I've gotten more comfortable with the fact that those people just aren't for me.
Do you find in your professional lives that it's a topic, at least in the workplace, that's best to compartmentalize and not, I guess, just be very judicious about who you talk to about it?
When I had started all of this, I was working for the first couple years of it at my company, and I didn't walk around volunteering it because I was still figuring it out myself. I was in the school program we were in for 6 months, and then you're doing your own learning and trying to get certified after the fact. When I was managing, I talked to one of my direct reports about it in a one-on-one. Like it came up, she mentioned that somebody she knows like did tarot readings or something. So we chatted about it briefly. So there were a few people at my company that did know about it. And then of course I made the decision after some thought to put it on my LinkedIn. One, I had gotten certified, but also that I was working on this podcast with Christine and I was filling my time as I'm still searching for a job.
It makes perfect sense. It's just that some people are so close-minded about things, and some people could potentially use it as a basis of just even employment discrimination, which sounds like a terrible thing. I'm sure it happens.
Mm-hmm. And to Christine's point, it would just mean, all right, well, this isn't the company or
Right.
this isn't the manager because you want to be able to go to work and be your authentic self. That doesn't mean we're sitting in a Zoom call or in a conference room and we're turning to the person on our left and saying, I think there's a ghost behind you. Like we're
Right.
working, we're focused, and
Right.
we may have certain intuitive hits, but honestly, I think for Christine and I, if I can speak for both of us, we have so many more years of being in school and working where we weren't focusing on this and we probably were getting information all the time. We had the blinders on. If we went back to corporate jobs, I know you've talked about that, like, oh, if you went back into finance, okay, well, what might that look like? It probably would be a different experience for us now that we've had these several years in a row in this space. Would we operate differently in a meeting or who we choose to spend time with at lunch or, by the coffee maker? I don't know.
This is also an interesting question because, again, the finance world, my initial reaction was to keep everything separate. So I did. And then I got laid off. And everyone was like, well, what are you doing now? You want us to find you a job, blah, blah, blah. And so I started telling some people in the finance world that I'm starting a new business. And like, I hope you're sitting down for this. This is what my new business is. And every single person, I felt comfortable telling, was so supportive, and also had like an anecdote, like my dad said, about, something that had happened to them. I already have 2 resumes. One has my psychic business on it, one doesn't. And part of me is leaning towards going into an interview with my business on it because I think it shows a ton of great skills. We figured out how to make a podcast. I mean, who wouldn't want to hire me? But also if somebody knows that I have this gift and it's part of my life, but they want to discriminate against me for that, I'm kind of okay with it. And something else that's coming up for me is in finance, you wouldn't think intuition plays a big role, but I remember working on the trading floor, and some of my best work was done in like crisis fire drill moments when all I had to rely on was my intuition, and I was making amazing decisions.
You're investing, it's a risk, with a little bit of a gamble, and you're hoping for a payoff. So
you have to listen.
There's the hard side of it, the numbers, the analytics, the facts, but what do you feel best about? I think that makes perfect sense. And I went to school for accounting, and I have a similar background, so I completely concur with that.
And to Paul's point, I'm going to have one movie reference.
Okay.
So I'm thinking of Clint Eastwood saying, "Do you feel lucky, punk?" That's my only reference.
Well, do you?
Yeah, there you go, Paul. Thanks for finishing.
Oh, this is amazing. What's something you've learned about or enjoyed from the podcast?
Oh, I want to answer this one. The 2 of you and your interaction is so precious. You're laughing and Christine, I haven't met you in person, but I really like you. You just come across so warm and friendly and open, and I think the 2 of you together, just the way you connect is real, it's genuine, and it's really fun to listen to. Some of the stuff you get into, I get a little lost in. I feel like I definitely have to listen a second time, let it resonate a little bit and come back. And so I look forward to doing that. But that's what I love most about you. It's just how you present, and it's very nice to listen to.
Yeah, I would say similarly, like you guys share a great chemistry. And what comes through to me that I think is really important to your success is that you're genuine. Someone listening to you hears you guys really want to help people.
I think it's more about your willingness to share. And you don't know how you're going to impact anybody who's listening. And it kind of doesn't matter. It's just that you're open to sharing in a vulnerable way.
I haven't really listened to many podcasts, but what I did listen to, I really enjoyed. And I think you guys get along as if you've known each other for a long time.
We may have in another life.
Yeah.
So there's some story in each family, but it hasn't become mainstream yet. So I'm thinking, I'm in the corporate world, and we're thinking, we're learning diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I see what you and Christine are trying to do, and bring to light your journey. And I'm hoping more people will learn from that and come out and get comfortable with it. I always go back to the movie Sixth Sense, where everybody thought the kid was weird and crazy. And finally, the mother accepted he had the gift, and he was able to confront the spirits and all of that. So I think you're going to be able to help other people, and I hope the podcast brings that out.
We all wish you the best of luck and success with it.
Amen.
Absolutely.
Thanks, everyone. That was really sweet.
That was cute.
Sweeter than I thought. Yeah.
See, I mean, what about that laughing? I mean, it's like your sisters from another life.
Final thoughts or comments from the group? Did you have fun?
Yeah. Did you have
Yes.
fun?
Yeah.
Very interesting. It was very nice finally meeting people that Christine has been talking about. And that was a pleasure.
Yeah.
Don't think we'll be insulted if you check out some of our stupid dad jokes and stuff like that. I'm having anxiety for when the episode comes
my
out.
God.
Yeah.
You have at least a couple months to forget that we even recorded this, and then all of a sudden it'll come out and you can listen to it.
I have my prompts in the phone. I'll see it as soon as it.
Yeah.
Well, this
right.
was fun. Thank you.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you all.
Yes.
Thank
It
you
was a
very
pleasure
much
meeting you.
for
Pleasure.
participate. This was fun.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Ciao.
Bye.
Thanks for listening.
If you'd like to learn more, the resources we used to prepare for this episode are listed in the show notes.
You can reach me, Christine, at Channeled by Christine with 1 L on Instagram.
And you can reach me, Renee, at _read by Renee, or connect with both of us via email at synergytosynastry@gmail.com. Keep your spirit curious and your aura sparkling.
We'll see you when the stars next align.
Mic test. Me, 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 me. Me.
You better be careful, Paul. They do a bloopers show at the end. I think you might have made it.
I got plenty of material for that, believe me. We'll give you, Christine, the mailing address here where to direct the check. It's not a problem.
Yeah.
No problem, I got you.
Yeah. We should get agents, honey. Like we should go on other people's podcasts.
Be professional guests.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's do it.